You want to know the moment a marriage dies? It's not the shouting. It's the quiet click of a zipper. I opened Tara's purse to grab my car keys and pulled out a small bottle and a box that didn't belong to us. The brand names were new. The story they told was ancient. My chest didn't explode. It went cold, precise, like a lab refrigerator. What else was in there? Receipts, hotel stationery, a second phone case. I didn't need everything. I had enough. 9 years together should have meant trust. Lately, it meant schedules that never aligned and laughter that didn't include me. She had project nights twice a week and a boss who loved FaceTime. I'm a data systems engineer. Patterns soothe me. So I started with a timeline. Late returns, new clothes, cash withdrawals, and a sudden interest in overtime near Worcester. Curiosity wasn't going to save me. Evidence would. I didn't confront her. Confrontations feed liars. Instead, I cooked pasta, asked about her day, and watched her face for the tiny stutters of guilt. Nothing. If deception were an Olympic event, Tara could anchor the relay. She mentioned an upcoming off-site review, a conference room in some hotel on the interstate. She didn't name it. She didn't have to. We all know the kind of place where business meetings end with drawn curtains and paid by the hour discretion. I smiled, nodded, and filed the data point where it belonged. You know what's funny? People think revenge starts with rage. Mine started with sorting tools. Not wrenches, habits. She kept the purse near the door, always unzipped. She left her work tote by the kitchen chair, always heavy. She guarded her phone like a passport, but she never guarded the stories she told about time. Time is the easiest thing to fact-check. So I built a calendar from memory and bank alerts, then marked the gaps she couldn't explain. Every box on that grid was a quiet verdict. I took a drive that night, just to hear my own thinking without her footsteps upstairs. Worcester at midnight is a low hum. Tires on wet asphalt, a siren 2 neighborhoods away, a bar back dumping bottles behind O'Reilly's. The air smelled like rain and old hops. I wasn't out to hurt anyone. I wanted clarity. If I was wrong, I'd apologize and carry that shame like a backpack. If I was right, I'd make sure the truth didn't need my voice to speak. It would speak for itself. Back home, Tara slept face down, mouth open, the steady rhythm of someone who felt safe. I stood in the doorway and waited for anger. It didn't show up. What arrived was a plan. No yelling. No theatrics. Just the quiet math of cause and effect. She'd chosen secrecy. I'd choose light. She'd chosen shortcuts. I'd choose patience. She'd chosen a man who loved power. I'd let his power work against him. Why swing a hammer when gravity can drop the same weight for free? In the morning, I made coffee, packed her lunch, and added a mental note. Don't chase. Hunters who chase get sloppy. Hunters who wait come home fed. Tara kissed my cheek with the confidence of someone writing fiction and calling it Tuesday. She smelled like citrus shampoo and something floral that wasn't ours. I watched the door close, counted to 30, and wrote 2 lines in my notebook. Find pattern. Prove pattern. Everything after that would be execution. What would you do next? Blow it up or let it bleed? I chose bleed. Slow confirms things explosions can't. After work, I cleared a shelf in the hall closet and labeled a shoebox, house stuff. Inside, I placed a small notepad, a spare USB drive, and nothing illegal. I wasn't going to be the story. I was going to record one. If her truth lived in rooms I didn't enter, then I'd let those rooms report to me. Tomorrow I'd start a harmless little experiment, one that didn't need a single word from Tara to tell me everything. The next morning, I chose patience over fireworks. I started with what was mine to use. Tara and I shared the family sedan, registered to both of us. That made the choice simple. In my toolbox sat a GPS unit small as a matchbox, meant for lost bags and borrowed cars. I charged it, labeled the account household, and set alerts for movement after work hours. Nothing dramatic. Just information that would arrive without knocking. While it charged, I made a checklist. Phone habits, card swipes, calendar blocks that looked like real meetings but didn't line up with company logs. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was mapping. I pulled bank statements and colored the suspicious entries in blue. New clothing boutique. Gas station off the interstate. A chain hotel 2 exits past where her firm usually meets clients. Patterns don't scream at first. They clear their throat. At lunch, I walked the parking deck and pretended to scroll my phone. The weather was cool and bright. I knelt by our sedan to tie a shoe that didn't need tying and secured the tracker under the rear frame, well away from heat and road spray. Magnets clicked, the device hummed once, and then the car was no longer a mystery. I didn't feel powerful. I felt present. That evening, Tara announced another review session. She spoke casually, the way people do when they've rehearsed an alibi enough times to believe it. I didn't challenge the story. I slow-cooked spaghetti sauce and asked about her friend Erin instead. She gave small answers and escaped to the bedroom with her laptop. The house grew quiet enough to hear the refrigerator cycle and the neighbor's dog yawn. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Let the data talk." The first ping landed at 6:12 p.m. North Main, moving east. A second ping parked at a strip mall near the highway. 10 minutes later, the dot slid onto I-290 and headed toward the hotels. I recognized the exit number without looking it up. Some places become characters as soon as they enter the story. Stonebridge Suites was that kind of place. Neutral tiles, heavy curtains, and enough carpet to bury secrets. I didn't drive after her. Chasing is how people meet walls and cops. Instead, I watched the map advance in neat jumps, a digital heartbeat. At 6:45 p.m., the dot stopped behind the hotel, near the side door guests use when they want fewer hellos. My phone vibrated again, low battery warning from the device. I smiled despite myself. Of course, the first night would test the system. I set a reminder to recharge tomorrow and let the tracker sleep. The point had already been made. While the device rested, I prepared the other half of the plan, a listening post. Not to record voices. That would pull me into legal gray I didn't need. I wanted patterns, footsteps, timings, the rhythm of arrivals and departures. Stonebridge has thin floors and helpful vents. The next afternoon, I booked room 119, one flight below 219, and asked for quiet, please, early check-in. The clerk didn't even look up. Hotels understand discretion like churches understand guilt. In the room, I set my phone's voice memo app on the nightstand and let it run. It would catch muffled thumps and door clicks from above, enough to timestamp comings and goings. I wrote "control sample" on a sticky note and placed it beside the phone, as if labeling the moment could steady my hands. Then I waited. Air conditioner hum. Elevator bell. Laughter in the hall from a family with too many suitcases. Ordinary life doing ordinary things. At 3:02 p.m., a heel tapped overhead. Another followed. The cadence said 2 people, unhurried. Doors closed. Water rushed. A muted laugh, masculine, floated like it rode the ductwork. I didn't need names to feel the shape of the scene. The memo app marked the time for me. I wrote it down anyway. Sometimes pen and paper make a truth sink deeper. 10 minutes later, the Jaguar arrived. A low, silky engine note on the lot outside, the kind of sound men buy to announce themselves to strangers. I craned the curtain just enough to catch graphite paint under gray sky. I didn't film. I didn't step into the hallway to listen harder. I stood still and let my pulse settle. When you move too soon, you turn an answer into a question again. At 4:11 p.m., the footsteps returned. Faster now. I dropped something, a curse I couldn't make out, and then silence. A door on the hallway clicked. Another door, the stairs, the outside. The memo app caught it all as a string of small earthquakes. Back home that night, Tara floated through the kitchen like nothing had happened. She tasted the sauce, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're sweet." I said, "Long day?" She nodded. That was nearly dialogue, but not really communication. In the hall closet, the shoebox waited. I added a printed map with highlights, the sticky note from the hotel, and one neat index card. Room 219 used on weekdays, 2:50 to 4:20 p.m., recurring. I slid the box back, closed the door softly, and felt the house lean toward the truth. I didn't know when I'd need leverage. I only knew leverage grows best in the shade. The tracker would recharge. the calendar would fill. And if Graham Whitaker preferred side entrances and heavy curtains, I would let the building introduce him to me before we ever spoke. Sometimes the cleanest answer is silence attached to a clock. Thursday looked harmless. Clouds thinned. Traffic flowed. My phone stayed face down while the tracker did its quiet work. At 2:37 p.m., Tara's slid toward the highway. I didn't chase. I moved later, unhurried, the way a shadow travels when light changes. Stonebridge Suites rose off the exit like a beige confession, neutral brick, heavy curtains, plants that had seen too much. I parked behind a delivery truck and walked like I had a room and a reason. The lobby smelled of lemon cleaner and cold air. Music leaked from a hidden speaker. I rode the elevator to 2, watched my reflection settle, and stepped into a carpeted hush. Doors sat at even intervals, like beats on a metronome. A housekeeper's cart waited by the ice machine. I passed room 219, turned the corner, and stopped beside a window that looked over the lot. From there I could hear hinges without being a hinge. At 3:56 p.m., a latch clicked. Low voices blended with hallway air. A woman's laugh I knew by muscle memory. Tara smoothed her blouse, eyes bright in the way attention brightens people. A man followed, broad shoulders, navy suit, jaw softened by a practiced smile. Graham Whitaker wore confidence like cologne. They didn't touch. They didn't have to. Their rhythm did the talking. They reached the elevator and disappeared behind closing doors. I stayed at the window until the chimes sounded below. Through glass I watched them cross the lobby and interweak sun. Outside, a graphite Jaguar waited with its hood catching thin light. He led. She followed. They separated like strangers near the car, then slid in from opposite sides with neat, learned efficiency. The engine purred, silky and controlled, and the car drifted toward a side road where fewer cameras watched. I filmed nothing. I wrote everything. Date, time, room, order of exit, car, direction, weather, even the housekeeper's cart. People lie. Patterns don't. The act of writing slowed my pulse. I breathed in the lemon air and let it hold me still a minute longer. The housekeeper returned, glanced past me with the polite boredom of someone who knows how to ignore secrets. I nodded and walked away. At the desk, I extended my stay with a traveler's shrug. The clerk slid a key card across without blinking. Hotels collect confessions for a living. They never ask for footnotes. Outside, heat pressed down like a steady hand. I leaned against my car, counting to 30 while my heartbeat evened out. This was the first clean sighting. No theories, no borrowed suspicions. A door, a schedule, a machine, 2 faces, 1 exit. The story could walk without me now. My job was to keep pace and not contaminate the sample. Back home, Tara floated through the kitchen as if generosity were silence. She tasted leftovers, mentioned a busy week, and drifted upstairs humming a tune I couldn't place. I waited for the shower's white noise and wrote 3 tight lines. 219 confirmed. Exit before 4. Jaguar present. I drew a small square beside each item and filled them in, one by one. The ink bled slightly, like it understood the stakes. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about consistency. 1 sighting can be luck. 2 make a pattern. 3 give you the right to speak softly to a man who mistakes volume for strength. I slid the notebook into the shoebox in the hall closet, closed the door with a careful hand, and stood there until the house felt level again. Tomorrow I'd sit under their lives once more. Same room below, same vents, same patience. The building would keep talking through its floors. Sooner or later, it would say their names out loud for me, in a rhythm only routine can write. Until then, I would let silence do what shouting never can, collect interest. Patterns get loud when you stop chasing words. I booked room 119 again, 1 floor under theirs, and let Stonebridge speak in clicks and hums. The clerk slid me a key without eye contact. Hotels collect secrets, they don't curate them. I set my phone on the nightstand, opened the memo app, and pressed record, not for voices, for timestamps. At 2:51 p.m., the ceiling ticked the way drywall announces a new wait. A minute later, Cadence settled. Heel, heel, pause. Heel, heel, pause. Two people unhurried. Waterline sang a quick silver note. Hangers clicked. The vent carried a light, amused exhale that didn't belong to me. I mapped it with small marks. Slash for door, dot for water, dash for laughter. Boring is proof. Affairs look like chaos from the outside. Inside, they run on calendars. At 3:19, rhythm shifted. Something thudded. Maybe a shoe. Maybe a wall. Silence. Then a whisper-shaped praise you don't need words to recognize. My hand shook once and kept writing. Doubt rose like a slow elevator. Was I hoarding revenge or delaying grief? You can grieve and still measure. You can be hurt and still be exact. The tracker chimed. Jaguar arrived. I didn't check the curtain. We'd already been introduced by sound yesterday. Control looks the same every time, and Graham Whitaker liked Control. I walked the hallway to clear the noise in my head. 19 steps to the stairwell, 12 to the ice machine, 3 slow seconds for the elevator doors to seal. Small numbers. Big uses. Back in 119, the memo crossed 30 minutes. Above me, water ran again. The fast shower of people who think rinsing time erases choices. The air filled with hotel soap and fake citrus. I ate almonds and starred 3:47. At 4:06, the exit sequence began. Zipper scrape, heel, heel, door hiss. 2 sets of steps to the elevator, separated just enough to look like strangers. Chime. Then polite silence. I stopped the recording and played it back at double speed. Footfalls turned to a metronome. The day folded into a tight line. I booked tomorrow's room before leaving. Consistency is leverage you don't have to raise your voice to use. At home, Tara floated through a quiet evening, careful with details that didn't matter and careless with the ones that did. 1 wineglass. A thumb scrolling. Busy week, she said, and the sentence sank like a coin in dark water. I stirred pasta and let patience answer for me. If I exploded now, they'd hide behind denial and lawyers. If I waited, the house would vote with me when it counted. After dishes, I built a cleaner ledger on the kitchen table. Monday, no movement. Tuesday, movement. Wednesday, confirmed. Thursday, confirmed. Friday, pending. I added a remark column and printed 1 line in tight block letters. He calls me a hobby. It wasn't on tape. It floated down the vent as a laugh with edges. It could mean anything. It meant enough. I filed the page in the shoebox in the hall closet. The house exhaled. Upstairs, the shower started, pipes knocking the familiar beat. I stood at the bottom of the stairs with my palms on the rail and let the real question arrive. Am I the man who fixes things or the man who measures failure and walks away? No answer yet. Answers ripen at their own pace. What I had was time, a building that told the truth, and 1 more day before the story changed color. Tomorrow I'd sit beneath room 219 again. Same vents. Same memo app. Same patience. The pattern would tighten 1 more notch. And when routine finishes carving names into silence, even the walls start speaking clearly. By Friday, the ledger looked like a heartbeat. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and clean, repeating lines. Patterns make people brave and visible. I didn't need fireworks. I needed a ripple to see how Graham handled cold water in a warm room. He favored a bistro near the courthouse. White napkins, noon rush, too many mirrors. I took a corner table and a glass of tap water. Lawyers perform at lunch. They lower their voices but widen their gestures. Power wants an audience that pretends not to watch. At 12:11, the graphite Jaguar slid into a space down the block. Graham entered with 2 associates and a paralegal glued to her phone. He sat facing the room. Of course. He wanted every face to be a mirror. Tara wasn't there. Good. This wasn't for her. The plan was simple and legal. The city had started ticketing hard on that block. I bought a cheap orange cone from a hardware cart, set it near his spot, and tore a scrap of paper from my notebook. Officer writing tickets now. Block letters. On my way back in, I handed the folded note to the host. For the gentleman in the navy suit, I said, like I was returning a receipt. The handoff was smooth. Graham's smile paused, then overcorrected. He excused himself with a raised finger. The universal, hold my crown. Outside, no meter made yet, but the cone made the space look like a trap. Control hates traps it didn't set. He jogged to the Jaguar, checked the windshield, checked the street, then tried to back out as a delivery truck idled by. Geometry turned petty and public. A horn blared. He waved an apology he didn't feel. The truck stopped. The paralegal found the window and started texting. One associate laughed into his water. A waiter slowed with a tray of iced tea to catch the scene. Heat shimmered over the sidewalk. Graham's jaw did the thing men do when they realize control has a cost. He pulled too far, corrected too late, and clipped the cone. It rolled and bumped a patio table. A woman flinched. Her glass tipped. Tea spread across linen like a tidy Rorschach for pride. No one got hurt. No one even swore. But noise followed him back inside like a parade he hadn't ordered. He returned brighter in the cheeks, dimmer in the eyes. He ordered faster. He didn't smile at the second joke. His associates hid amusement behind napkins. The paralegal typed with the ferocity gossip loves. My phone buzzed. Cole from O'Reilly's. Whitaker did a parking ballet. 2 stars. I didn't reply. I paid for my water and left. The point wasn't humiliation. The point was information. How does a man who treats people like props handle a stage that won't obey? Answer: worse than average. He scanned the room for a culprit and found none. He blew on his soup like steam had offended him. He recovered, but not all the way. Monsters don't trip often. When they do, they study the floor. Back home, I wrote a neat line on the ledger. Lunch wobble. Public. I circled it once. One wobble wins nothing. It tells you where to nudge next. The cone went into the hall closet beside the shoebox, a small, silly trophy for a useful day. At 4:02, Tara texted, running late. The tracker echoed her confidence and slid toward the interstate like a clock you could drive. I packed a small bag I could ignore at a metal detector. Charger, spiral notebook, earplugs I wouldn't use, memo app ready for another ceiling story. Precision mattered now. No more ripples. The water would change color, and the town would see what patterns look like when they surface. She brushed past me at the door, light with a practiced sadness. Be home after 8, she called. I answered with dinner plans that didn't exist. She smiled, relieved, and vanished into her timeline. When the latch clicked, the house eased back into neutral. I set the bag by my shoes and pictured room 219 like a blank form waiting for ink. 2 sightings make a pattern. 3 make a verdict. The building had taught me its vocabulary. Tomorrow the die would teach it to speak in pictures. Saturday came quiet, the kind of morning that pretends to be harmless. I checked the ledger, checked the charger, checked myself in the bathroom mirror until my face looked ordinary again. Then I drove to Stonebridge Suites and asked for early check-in with the same traveler's shrug. Room 119 waited like a held breath. I placed my phone on the nightstand, opened the memo app, and pressed record. The room hummed. Vince whispered. Carpets did their loyal swallowing act. At 2:43 p.m., the tracker pinged near the exit. At 2:51, the ceiling ticked. New weight, familiar cadence. Heel, pause. Water lines warmed. A closet door scraped. I wrote the times and drew the tiny marks I'd been drawing all week. I didn't need to hear words to know tone. The building translated for me. Ease, routine, ownership of the hour. Patterns were now a road I could drive with my eyes closed. Outside, I took a short walk to keep my hands from shaking. Gray sky, a couple arguing softly by their SUV, a kid lining up ants on a curb. Ordinary life, seconds from collision. When I came back, a maintenance cart leaned near the stairwell with a folded towel on top, the kind hotels used to say nothing to see. The hallway smelled faintly sweet, the way air smells near a candy shop that never opened. I didn't linger. I returned to 119 and let time finish its work. At 3:37, the water above shut off. A drawer banged. Silence gathered in the vents like breath before a laugh. Then a sound I had not heard all week. Surprise, sharp and unpracticed. A heel skidded. Another. The door above yanked open. Footsteps hurried. 2 sets, faster than strangers would walk together. My memo app caught each impact like a drum line. I stepped into the hall and moved toward the side exit, where the guests with secrets come and go. The door burst first and delivered a flash of color into gray day. Not red, not green, cobalt blue. It streaked down Tara's blouse and hands, seeped into Graham's collar, dotted his wrists, painted the delicate map of his knuckles. It wasn't violent. It was loud. The color did the speaking they'd avoided. For a heartbeat, no one knew who they were. Then the lobby found its theater. Phones rose like a field of small, glass-faced flowers turning towards sun. A teenager gasped, "Whoa," and forgot to whisper. A man laughed the way people laugh when they're relieved the joke isn't on them. Blue dripped to the tiles and widened into a patient circle. Tara's eyes caught mine through the glass, then slid away as if the light hurt. Graham went white under the blue. He scanned the ceiling for blame, then the floor, then the faces. Control had nothing to hold. Sir, the clerk called, but he wasn't talking to me. Graham headed for the bathroom and hit the locked sign with his palm. The hard blue handprint he left behind looked like a badge of office he didn't want. Tara tried to scrub a sleeve with another sleeve. The fabric just learned the color more deeply. 2 women in gym clothes filmed from the doorway and asked each other whether the dye was one of those hospital things. I didn't answer. I wasn't part of the show. I was the audience taking notes. Outside, the graphite Jaguar waited, clean and unprepared. Blue dropped from Graham's cuffs onto the fob. He stared at the tiny stain like it had insulted his lineage. A bystander said, too loudly, "Guess the meeting ran long," and the laughter grew teeth. The video would write its own captions in 1,000 thumbs by dinner. I didn't chase them. I didn't even smile. I walked to the far end of the lot and watched from the corner of my eye while they retreated to the car with hunched dignity, the kind that snaps photos by itself. The Jaguar started. The blue marks on the driver's seat would tell stories the detail shop would hate. They pulled away. The parking space held a slow, cobalt oval that the wind refused to move. Back in 119, I let the memo roll and sat on the bed until my pulse obeyed. I had not raised my voice. I had not swung a hammer. I had let pattern introduce color and asked the day to do the rest. In my notebook, I wrote 3 lines, 337 exposure. Phones up immediately. No apology, only control. I boxed the middle line twice. I could hear my own breath now, even through the hum of the vent. At home, the house was still. I set a bath towel on the tile by the front door. When Tara arrived, a blue fingerprint kissed the edge of the towel and stopped there, as if it had reached its border. She took a breath that sounded like a held sob wrapped as a sigh. "Long day," she said. I didn't answer. Silence has a job. It carried more than words could carry without breaking. In the hall closet, the shoebox made room for a folded, cobalt-stained napkin I'd picked up near the lobby. Souvenir or specimen, it didn't matter. The town would talk by morning. Clips would multiply without my help. Tomorrow's work wasn't noise. Tomorrow I would let language return, one measured sentence at a time. The blue had done its part. Now it was time for the truth to pick up a phone. The house waited like a witness. Late sun on linoleum, a towel by the door with a faint blue kiss. Tara stood at the sink, scrubbing as if skin were a whiteboard. The blouse had changed. The color lived under her nails. Cobalt kept its vote. I set a glass of water down and let silence work. Silence doesn't argue. It opens a trapdoor. She tried logistics, traffic, a printer jam, a headache with no symptoms. Words treaded water. Then the line I'd been collecting finally surfaced. She'd made a mistake months ago, and it got complicated. Months matched the ledger. Complicated matched the vent. I didn't ask for names. The pages already had them. Confession has rhythm. Deny, delay, leak, flood. She hit each mark, 6 or 7 months, meetings that evolved. A bad week turned routine. She said she felt seen. I thought of the bistro's mirrors and how Graham always faced the room. Being seen as posing, being known as work. I let that difference sit until it had shape. She pivoted to survival. Maybe a transfer, maybe we could rebuild. The word lay on the counter like a broken hinge. I said little. I counted 12 steps to the front door and back. Her first tear came when she realized I wouldn't perform the line that cues forgiveness. I handed her a towel, not a script. The phone rang, unknown number. I tapped speaker and set it down. Graham Whitaker flowed out smooth, the tone of a man used to rooms that flatter him. He asked for Tara, then slid to me mid-syllable. Professional. Courteous. Hollow. He said misunderstandings, privacy, and exposures that don't benefit anyone. Words trying to wear suits. I let him fill the air, then laid terms like tools on a bench. Resignation, effective immediately. Departure from Massachusetts within weeks, verifiable. A simple statement citing personal reasons. No counter-narratives, no leaks. No contact with Tara outside HR. No contact with me, ever. He exhaled, small steel, and tried to buy time. Time was the one thing I wasn't selling. I repeated the terms, slower. I didn't say hotel, ledger, or color. I didn't threaten. Leverage whispers. He asked if consideration would help, careful code for money. I told him I wanted closure, not currency. This town already had a currency, and it spends fast. He asked what would keep this contained. I added the last requirement. A letter to his board and partners admitting conduct inconsistent with firm expectations, without dragging Tara through legal gravel. He could choose dignity or momentum. Both were leaving. While the call held its polite shape, Tara stood still, like noise might trigger collapse. When it ended, she asked if I wanted to talk. Want wasn't the measure now. Accuracy was. We divide property, sell what needed selling, and speak through channels the court understands. She nodded and folded the towel like it could erase a day. 10 minutes later, a draft statement arrived, padded with passive voice. I cut cushions and added verbs. Effective immediately. Relocating out of state. No further comment. He replied, understood. Power sounds different when it agrees. By evening, the town threw a small festival. Clips spread. Captions multiplied. The lobby's blue circle became a local emblem. I curated none of it. Tara moved through rooms like floorboards could testify. I gave her space and gave the house the quiet it needed to tell me when to sleep. Before bed, I logged the day. Confession at home. Terms on call. Resignation pending. Then one more line that earned no box. I still wanted the life I thought we had. Some truths don't take check marks. I closed the shoebox. The closet door touched home with a soft click. Morning. The town spoke fluent Cobalt. Clips looped. Captions fought. I stayed off comments and made coffee. The house listened like a judge. At 10, Aaron arrived with sunglasses, a casserole, and a phone already awake. Sympathy posed as a smile. Tara came downstairs arranged to pass inspection. I let them take the porch. Sun on rails, neighbors watering what didn't need water. Aaron opened with PR. There's a narrative forming. If we get ahead, she glanced at me. I gave her stone. Tara's voice thinned. I need to say it, she said. I set rules on the rail. No names but ours. No accusations, no legal claims. She agreed. Aaron didn't. The phone rose anyway. Tara spoke. I lied. Months. I wanted attention and chose the lazy version. The words landed like furniture being set down. A car slowed. The neighbors paused their hoses. Aaron tried a softer angle. Pressure at work, but Tara shook her head. No, it was me. One sentence cut deeper than any proof. I thanked Aaron for the casserole and asked her to stop recording. This belongs to our house. A long beat, then the phone disappeared. Silence rinsed the air. Inside, I opened the tabs I'd saved. Division of property, petition to dissolve marriage, temporary orders. Checklists tame weather. Tara sat, scrubbed hands quiet, and asked what I needed. Accuracy. And signatures. At noon, an email pinged. Graham's resignation. Effective immediately. Relocating out of state. No further comment. A second letter to the board admitting conduct inconsistent with expectations. Clean, terse, uncolored. A door closed itself. I forwarded nothing. I saved the files, printed 2 copies. One for the shoebox with the ledger, one for the table, paper gavel. Aaron left with careful goodbyes and a look that promised a different version. The phone buzzed with strangers' numbers. I let them pass. Evening returned the porch to wood. The casserole cooled. The house lowered its shoulders. I wrote, porch confession witnessed. Resignation confirmed. Divorce initiated. Then a quieter line. I miss the ordinary more than the dream. Some truths don't take check marks. I killed the porch light and stood in the doorway. The town would move on soon. My job was simple now. Finish forms, keep the ledger clean, stop living in rooms that echo. Tomorrow, I'd shelve the shoebox higher and pack my first small box. By Monday, the town's appetite faded. A last meme, jaguar with blue gloves, then quiet. I archived the noise and opened a clean window labeled Next. Graham's resignation sat like a stone. Personal reasons, effective immediately. The board letter said, inconsistent with expectations. No names. No color. A door choosing its own lock. A blog traced him to Arizona. Geography as absolution. Let him have it. Tara moved through lists. HR, a short leave, a smaller desk offered in another department. She was lighter with boxes to tick, heavier when the day went still. I stayed with stable things. Dishes, 3 familiar running streets, a car wash that made effort visible. We shared a house, not a calendar. Accuracy replaced romance, and the rooms preferred it. The paperwork learned our names. A kind clerk showed where signatures live. Division of property. She kept the car. I kept the condo. Retirement accounts split even. The painting from Provincetown would be mine. The Dutch oven, hers. No forks as weapons. Just pens and pauses to drink water while a page cooled. We chose mediation, quiet room, tissue box no one needed. The mediator wanted narratives. I handed ledgers. Tara spoke in clear, economical bursts. This goes. This stays. Regret didn't fix anything, but it put items back on their correct shelves. I boxed our photos and learned how easily smiles argue for any story you want. I kept a handful, scanned the rest. The cloud could babysit our ghosts. The shoebox inherited new tenants. The resignation, the ledger's last page, the stamped petition with a case number like coordinates. On Thursday, she asked for the cast iron skillet, gift from my mother, first edible omelet we ever made. 2 true stories collided. I handed it over. We stood a second like neighbors at a fence line, then returned to lists. By Friday, we had a hearing date and a short script. Dissolution, no kids, no support dispute. Friends sent prayers and plans. I declined drinks. People expect smoke or a sermon. We had paperwork. Evenings I drove unfamiliar streets to practice leaving on purpose. Worcester sounded the same. Tires on damp pavement. A radio, 2 houses over. I parked near O'Reilly's and didn't go in. Cole lifted a glass through the window. Another time. Saturday, HR approved Tara's transfer. Title trimmed, pay reduced. The email read like weather. Cooler, wind from the west. She said she'd take it, not to win me back, to find ground. That mattered in a small, honest way. We divided digital life last. Passwords, cloud storage, the road trip playlist duplicated so neither lost the songs. I kept the quiet instrumentals. She kept the hooks. It fit. When the day ended, the final signature rested on the table. I wasn't lonely. I was spacious. That's a sound only a quiet house makes. I filed the page in a folder labeled After, turned off the kitchen light, and let the room go dark on purpose. Out west, he could chase horizons. Here, the town would forget us. Then remember only a color when someone spilled something at Stonebridge. Fine. I didn't need legend. I needed keys in one bowl, a face that matched its own calendar. Tomorrow I'll pack the first box that isn't evidence. 3 books I actually read, the chipped mug that never leaks, the New England map with pushpins we never placed. The shoebox goes to a high shelf. The rest goes forward. A month later, Worcester exhaled. The Cobalt jokes faded to folklore, traded like weather. I stopped checking the town page. I started sleeping through the first siren of the night again. The ledger in the shoebox ended with a date and a case number. Pages don't celebrate. They just stop needing ink. One Friday, I walked to O'Reilly's because endings deserve a chair. The bar smelled like old hops and wet wood, the way it always had. Cole slid me a soda without asking. Driving, he said. Thinking, I said. He raised his glass from a respectful distance and went back to polishing clean things. A TV above the bottles rolled silent headlines. A ticker mentioned a new hire at a Phoenix firm. Claims defense. Sunny photo, careful smile. Geography as absolution again. I let the screen keep it. If Graham had learned anything, it wasn't my homework to grade. My phone buzzed once on the bar. Unknown number, local area code. I let it ring out. A text arrived a beat later. I'm sorry for all of it. I hope you build something good. No name, no ask. I read it twice and pictured a towel folded on a counter. Regret is a tool with no handle. I deleted the message and felt nothing dramatic, only a click, like a door finding its latch. I finished the soda and left cash under the glass. Outside, night sat clean and ordinary. Tires whispered on damp pavement. Someone laughed 2 blocks away. A dog negotiated the last argument of the day with a stubborn bark. I walked home by the long route, counting familiar cracks in the sidewalk, letting the neighborhood remind me that most things don't need stories to exist. At the condo, I moved the shoebox to the top shelf and labeled a different box kitchen, keep. Books went in a second box, only the ones I actually read. The map of New England stayed on the wall, now honest about the pushbins we never placed. The quiet held. I made tea and washed the single mug I used most. That was the rhythm now. 1 pan, 1 plate, 1 set of keys in the bowl by the door. The house no longer echoed someone else's steps. It sounded like the inside of a held breath, then like the breath itself, then like normal air. I sat at the table and opened a new notebook. First page, first line, I live here. Second line, I keep time I can defend. Third line, I am not a legend. I am a person who locks his door. The pen moved without performance. When it stopped, I didn't need a box to mark it done. Later, in bed, I let my mind replay the blue, the porch, the call, the clerk's quiet directions. None of it asked to be rewritten. The past had earned its place on the shelf. I faced the ceiling and pictured tomorrow's small list. Run 3 streets. Buy groceries I'll cook. Text Cole back about that rain check. Return the library book that actually taught me something. People say closure is a feeling. For me, it was a habit. It was locking the door and knowing which side of it I wanted to stand on. It was choosing a smaller life that fit, then wearing it until it felt like skin. I turned off the lamp. The room went dark on purpose. Outside, the town kept its soft conversation with itself. Inside, nothing vibrated on the counter. No trackers, no tests, no recordings. Only a steady house and a calendar that matched my face. I rolled onto my side, set tomorrow on the nightstand in the shape of a pen, and let sleep choose me.